The mystery arrival. The stars shimmered coldly in the void of space, a backdrop to the Xeric Empire's mighty fleet. Hundreds of colossal warships floated in formation, their dark hulls bristling with weapons. These ships had crushed countless civilizations, their power unmatched in the galaxy. Yet today, something strange was happening. Commander Xalvok, the human ship has entered the sector, an officer reported, his voice tinged with disbelief. Xalvok, the Xeric fleet commander, raised a sharp eyebrow. He stood tall and imposing, his dark scales glinting under the control room's pale lights. "One ship," he repeated, his tone mocking. "The humans think one ship can stand against us." The officer hesitated. "Yes, Commander. It is a single craft. Small, unarmed." The control room erupted in laughter. The Xeric officers shook their heads, exchanging amused glances. Humans were clever, they admitted, but their technology was primitive compared to the Xyrax. One ship, against an armada. It was almost insulting. "Display it on the screen," Xalvok ordered. A holographic projection flickered to life, showing the human ship. It was a sleek, silver craft, no larger than a medium-sized cargo vessel. It moved slowly but deliberately, its engines leaving a faint blue trail. The ship appeared fragile, almost delicate, as if it could be crushed by a single missile. "Is this a joke?" Xalvok sneered. "Do they think they can intimidate us with this toy?" Another officer chuckled. "Perhaps they are surrendering. Maybe they have realized resistance is futile." But even as they mocked, a quiet unease settled in the room. Something about the human ship felt off. It didn't match the reports of Earth's typical military crafts. It had no visible weapons, no markings, no signs of life. And yet it moved with purpose, heading straight for the heart of the Xeric fleet. "Commander, the ship is not responding to our hails," the communications officer said. "Keep trying," Xalvok ordered, his amusement giving way to irritation. "And prepare to intercept. I want that ship boarded and its crew captured." As the Xeric fleet moved to surround the human craft, the ship continued its silent approach. It didn't slow down, didn't change course. It was as if it wasn't even aware of the massive warships around it. "Why don't they stop?" one officer muttered. "Perhaps their pilot is a fool," another replied. But Xalvok's sharp eyes narrowed. He didn't like this. The humans were desperate, yes, but they weren't stupid. For them to send one ship into the jaws of death, there had to be a reason. "Commander, should we fire a warning shot?" "No," Xalvok said after a moment. "Let it come closer. I want to see what they're planning." The human ship drifted closer, now within the fleet's innermost defenses. The Xeric warships loomed over it, their massive forms casting long shadows. But the human craft didn't falter. It glided smoothly, its silver hull gleaming under the light of a nearby star. Suddenly, a faint hum echoed through the Xeric ships. It was soft at first, barely noticeable. But it grew louder, resonating in the walls and floors of the fleet's control rooms. "What is that sound?" an officer asked, his voice uneasy. "Some kind of frequency," the communications officer said, frowning. "It's coming from the human ship." Xalvok's eyes narrowed. "Shut it down. Jam their signals." "We're trying, Commander, but it's not working." The hum grew louder, vibrating through the fleet. Lights flickered. Control panels sparked. Suddenly, the entire fleet's communication network went silent. "Report," Xalvok barked. "Commander, we've lost all external communications," the officer said, panic creeping into his voice. "Our systems are shutting down." The control room erupted into chaos as officers scrambled to regain control. Xalvok clenched his fists, his sharp claws digging into his palms. This was no accident. The human ship was doing this. "Impossible," he muttered. "How could one ship disable an entire fleet?" As the Xeric warships floated helplessly, the human craft finally stopped. It hovered in the middle of the armada, silent and still. Then, A single message appeared on the Zyrek monitors, written in the universal language. "You have been warned. Turn back." The room fell silent. Zalvok stared at the message, his mind racing. Who was behind this? How had the humans developed such technology? And most importantly, what were they planning next? The hum faded, leaving an eerie quiet. For the first time in years, the Zyrek felt fear. This wasn't just a ship. It was a message. And they had no idea what it truly meant. The first encounter. The control room on the Zyrek mothership was tense, a sharp contrast to the laughter that had filled it just moments before. Commander Zalvok paced back and forth, his claws clicking against the metal floor. The single human ship hung in space like an enigma, silent and still. "They're toying with us," Zalvok growled. "I won't be made a fool of by these primitives. Prepare the boarding crew." "Commander," an officer interjected hesitantly, "our systems are still unstable." "The transporters. Use the shuttles if you must." Zalvok snapped. "I want that ship boarded now." The Zyrek moved quickly, launching a small squadron of sleek, black shuttles toward the human craft. The ships advanced cautiously, their weapons armed, their pilots on edge. The human vessel didn't react. It floated, unbothered by the approach, as if it were inviting the Zyrek closer. Inside the human craft, Captain Alina Cole watched the Zyrek shuttles on her console. Her expression was calm, her movements precise. She adjusted a small holographic interface, her fingers gliding over symbols and numbers. "Right on schedule," she muttered to herself. As the first Zyrek shuttle reached the craft, its pilot initiated docking procedures. A metallic arm extended, latching onto the human ship with a sharp click. Inside the shuttle, Zyrek soldiers prepared to breach the airlock. They were seasoned warriors, clad in heavy armor and equipped with advanced plasma rifles. The door to the human ship hissed open, revealing the dimly lit corridor. The soldiers moved in formation, their steps cautious. The air was eerily still, the only sound the faint hum of the ship's systems. "Spread out," the squad leader ordered, his voice steady. "Find the crew and secure the bridge." The soldiers advanced, their weapons at the ready. The corridors were narrow and featureless, the walls smooth and unmarked. It felt more like walking through a laboratory than a spacecraft. "Commander, there's no sign of resistance," the squad leader reported through his communicator. "Keep searching." Zalvok's voice barked back. "They're hiding somewhere." But as the soldiers pushed deeper into the ship, unease settled over them. The corridors seemed to stretch endlessly, looping back in ways that didn't make sense. The air felt heavier, the hum of the ship's systems growing louder. "Sir," one soldier said nervously, "I think we've been here before. This corridor, it's the same as the last one." "Impossible," the leader snapped. "Focus. This is just human trickery." Yet, as they moved forward, the walls seemed to shift, the lights flickering in strange patterns. The hum grew louder, resonating in their helmets like a heartbeat. Suddenly, a voice echoed through the ship, calm and unyielding. "You were warned." The soldiers froze. The voice wasn't human. It was too smooth, too precise. It came from everywhere and nowhere at once. "Who said that?" the leader demanded, his weapon scanning the empty corridor. The lights dimmed, and a faint blue glow filled the air. Symbols and diagrams appeared on the walls, shifting and changing too quickly to comprehend. "This is no ordinary ship," one soldier whispered, fear creeping into his voice. Before the leader could respond, the corridor shifted again. The walls seemed to fold inward, creating a new path. At the end of the corridor stood a lone figure, clad in a sleek black suit. "Hold your fire," the leader ordered, raising a hand. The figure stepped forward, their movements fluid and confident. It was a human, a woman, her face calm and unreadable. "I am Captain Alina Cole," she said, her voice steady. "You've made a mistake coming here." The leader aimed his weapon at her. "Surrender, human." You are outnumbered and outmatched. Elena tilted her head slightly, a faint smile on her lips. Outnumbered, maybe. Outmatched. No. Before the soldiers could react, the walls around them lit up, projecting blinding blue light. Their weapons fizzled and died in their hands. The power drained instantly. What's happening? One soldier cried, backing away. This ship isn't just a vessel, Elena said, her tone matter-of-fact. It's a weapon, one designed to neutralize threats like you. The leader gritted his teeth, his claws twitching with frustration. You can't win, human. Our fleet is vast. You're just one ship. Elena's smile widened. Exactly. Just one ship. The corridor shifted again, the walls closing in around the soldiers. In seconds, they were back at the airlock, their shuttle waiting for them. The soldiers looked around, confused and disoriented. Leave, Elena said, her voice echoing through the ship. Tell your commander what you've seen. This is your only warning. The squad leader hesitated, his pride warring with his survival instincts. But the look in Elena's eyes, calm, unwavering, told him this was no bluff. Without another word, the soldiers retreated to their shuttle. As they disengaged from the human craft, the ship's faint blue glow pulsed once, a silent reminder of its power. Back on the mothership, Zalvok watched the retreating shuttle on the monitor. His claws tapped the console in frustration. Commander, the squad leader's voice came through, shaky and uncertain. You need to see this for yourself. Zalvok's eyes narrowed as the human ship sent another message, this time in bold, unmissable letters. This is not a fight you can win. The game had changed, and Zalvok knew it. This human was more dangerous than he'd ever imagined. The first strike. Commander Zalvok loomed over the holographic projection of the human ship, his reptilian eyes narrowing. The Xyrek soldiers had returned shaken, their pride bruised and their weapons useless. Their tales of disorienting corridors, blinding lights, and a single unarmed human were unbelievable. But the evidence was undeniable. The human ship was unlike anything the Xyrek Empire had encountered before. Enough games, Zalvok growled, his voice echoing across the control room. We'll destroy that ship and send a clear message to these humans. His officers nodded, eager to restore their commander's pride. On Zalvok's order, the fleet's primary cannons aligned, their glowing barrels aimed at the lone vessel. Each cannon had the power to obliterate a city, and dozens were now trained on the human ship. Charge weapons, Zalvok commanded, his lips curling into a cold smile. I want them reduced to dust. The room buzzed with energy as the weapons charged, their cores humming with destructive power. On the monitors, the human ship remained still, seemingly unaware of the impending strike. Fools, Zalvok muttered. They had their chance to surrender. Just as the cannons reached full power, the human ship moved. Not by propulsion, not by thrusters, but as if space itself bent around it. It shifted slightly to the left, then to the right, avoiding the targeting systems entirely. Commander, the ship's movement is irregular, an officer reported, panic creeping into his voice. Fire anyway. Zalvok barked. The cannons roared, releasing beams of searing energy that streaked toward the human ship. But before they could make contact, the ship pulsed. A wave of blue energy radiated from its hull, rippling outward like a pebble dropped in water. The energy wave collided with the incoming beams, absorbing them effortlessly. The room fell silent as the Xyrek officers watched their most powerful weapons vanish into harmless ripples of light. Impossible, Zalvok whispered, his claws digging into the console. The human ship pulsed again, this time sending the energy wave back toward the Xyrek fleet. It wasn't a violent strike. It didn't explode or tear through the ships. Instead, the wave passed through the fleet like a ghost, leaving every system offline in its wake. The control room went dark. Monitors blinked off, lights flickered out, and the hum of the ship's engines ceased. The mighty Xyrek fleet, conqueror of countless worlds, was now dead in space. Emergency power. Zalvok roared, slamming his fist onto the console. A faint red glow returned to the room, illuminating the panicked faces of the officers. The fleet's auxiliary systems were barely functional, and their weapons remained offline. "Commander, we've lost control of the fleet," an officer said, his voice trembling. Zalvok's rage was palpable, his sharp claws leaving marks on the console as he gripped it tightly. "How is this possible? How can one ship?" His words were cut off as the human ship's voice came through the comms. "This is Captain Elena Cole of the Earth vessel Aegis," the voice said, calm and resolute. "Your weapons have been neutralized. Your fleet is at our mercy." Zalvok snarled. "Do you think this is over, human? You may have disabled us, but you cannot defeat the Xeric Empire." "You misunderstand," Elena replied. "This isn't about defeating you. It's about showing you the cost of underestimating humanity." The Aegis pulsed again, its blue glow intensifying. Across the Xeric fleet, systems began to overload. Sparks flew from consoles, circuits fried, and engines sputtered. One by one, the warships began to drift, their power completely drained. Zalvok slammed his fists onto the console, his voice a roar of fury. "Humans are weak. You cannot stand against us forever." Elena's voice remained steady. "This is not a war you can win, Commander. Your empire is built on fear and brute strength, but humanity's strength lies in something you'll never understand: adaptability." As the Xeric ships floated helplessly, the Aegis sent one final pulse. This time, it wasn't an attack. It was a signal, a warning. Across the galaxy, every Xeric communication channel lit up with a single message: "Leave Earth or face extinction." The message echoed in the control room, its simplicity chilling. Zalvok's officers stared at him, waiting for orders, but he was silent. For the first time in his career, the great commander was at a loss. On the screen, the Aegis began to move, its sleek form disappearing into the void. It didn't linger, didn't taunt. It had made its point. As silence fell over the crippled fleet, Zalvok clenched his fists. His pride was shattered, but his mind raced with thoughts of revenge. "This isn't over," he growled, his voice low and dangerous. "They may have won this battle, but the war is just beginning." Unbeknownst to him, the humans were counting on it. The power of one. Deep within the silence of the crippled fleet, Commander Zalvok paced the bridge of his flagship like a caged predator. His officers avoided his gaze, their once proud confidence now replaced by a collective unease. The name of the human ship, Aegis, echoed in their minds, a ghost that haunted their thoughts. "Commander," a junior officer finally dared to speak, "our auxiliary systems are operational, but the main systems remain unresponsive. It's as if the ship is resisting." "Ships don't resist," Zalvok growled, his claws raking across the armrest of his command chair. "Find a solution or find a way to destroy them. We are the Xeric Empire. We do not bow to insects." But as he sat, brooding, an encrypted message blinked on the console in front of him. The symbols were unfamiliar, their patterns alien even to the Xeric. Zalvok leaned forward, his sharp eyes narrowing. "What is this?" he demanded. The communication officer hesitated, his fingers trembling as he tried to analyze the data. "Commander, it's a transmission from the human ship, but it's not audio or video. It's code." "Translate it," Zalvok ordered. The officer nodded and worked quickly. Moments later, the translation appeared on the main screen. "The Xeric's greatest strength is also its greatest weakness. You rely on fear. Now it's your turn to feel it." The room fell silent. Zalvok's claws tapped against the console as he read the message again. He knew it wasn't a bluff. The Aegis had already proven itself capable of dismantling his fleet with ease, but what truly unnerved him was the implication that the humans understood his empire's deepest vulnerabilities. "Commander," another officer said, breaking the silence, "we've recovered fragments of their signal. It's not just disabling our systems, it's studying them. They're analyzing us." Zalvok's eyes widened. "They're learning." The thought sent a chill through the room. The Zirak had always prided themselves on being the galaxy's dominant force, their technology far superior to any other species. Yet here was a single ship, operated by humans, primitive creatures by their standards, dismantling their fleet not with brute strength, but with precision and intelligence. "Open a channel to the ship," Zalvok commanded. "I want to speak to this Captain Alina Cole." The screen flickered, and Alina's calm face appeared. She was seated in the command chair of the Aegis, her expression unreadable. "Commander Zalvok," she greeted, her voice steady, "I assume you've received my message." "You've made your point, human," Zalvok growled. "You've disabled my fleet, but the Zirak Empire is vast. Even if you destroy us here, others will come for Earth." Alina's expression didn't change. "We know. That's why we're not just fighting this battle. We're changing the rules of the game." Zalvok's eyes narrowed. "What are you talking about?" Alina leaned forward slightly, her voice taking on a sharp edge. "Your empire thrives on dominance. You conquer, you intimidate, and you destroy. But humanity doesn't fight like you do. We adapt, we innovate, and when we're pushed to the edge, we find ways to survive." She gestured to the sleek walls of her ship. "This vessel isn't just a warship. It's a statement. Every system you see, every countermeasure we've deployed, was designed to exploit your strengths. We've studied your tactics, your technology, your entire empire. The Aegis is proof that we can outthink you. And this is just the beginning." The words hung in the air like a challenge. Zalvok clenched his fists, his pride warring with the undeniable truth. "What do you want?" he demanded, his voice low and dangerous. Alina's gaze didn't waver. "We want peace. Leave Earth alone. And this ends here. But if you insist on continuing your conquest, know that the next time we meet, you won't be facing one ship. You'll be facing an entire fleet." Zalvok laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. "You think you can build more of these ships before we crush you?" Alina's calm demeanor cracked for just a moment, revealing the fire behind her eyes. "Try us." Before Zalvok could respond, the screen went dark. The Aegis pulsed again, and across the Zirak fleet, the power returned. Consoles flickered back to life, and engines roared to full capacity. For a brief moment, relief swept through the bridge, until they realized what the ship had left behind. Every console displayed the same image, schematics of the Aegis. But instead of revealing weaknesses, the schematics highlighted Zirak vulnerabilities. Every ship, every system, every weapon in their fleet was exposed. "They've mapped us," one officer whispered, his voice filled with dread. "They know everything." Zalvok stared at the screen, his claws digging into the armrest. He had underestimated these humans, and now his empire was on the brink of a crisis it couldn't comprehend. "Commander," another officer said hesitantly, "what are your orders?" Zalvok didn't answer immediately. His mind raced, calculating his next move. Finally, he stood, his towering form casting a shadow over the room. "Prepare the fleet for retreat," he said through gritted teeth. "But mark my words, this isn't over." As the Zirak ships turned and began to withdraw, the Aegis remained motionless, its blue glow fading into the stars. Alina watched the retreat from her command chair, her expression calm, but her hands clenched tightly. She knew this victory was temporary. The Zirak would return, stronger and angrier than before. But humanity had made its statement. They would not be underestimated again. For the first time in generations, the Zirak Empire knew fear, and Alina Cole knew that was the most powerful weapon of all, a show of strength. The Zirak fleet retreated into the darkness of space, a sight that had never been witnessed in the Empire's long, bloody history. But this retreat was not one of cowardice. It was a regrouping, a preparation for vengeance. On the bridge of his flagship, Commander Xalvok stood motionless, staring at the now distant human ship Aegis. His claws tapped rhythmically on the armrest of his chair, each tap echoing like a countdown. "Status report," he growled, his voice a low rumble. "All systems operational," an officer replied. "The humans' interference has ceased." Xalvok sneered. "Then it's time we remind them why the Xeric Empire is feared across the galaxy. Activate the Vortex Fighters. We'll test their so-called invincible ship." The Vortex Fighters were the pride of the Xeric fleet, fast, maneuverable, and deadly. Unlike the lumbering warships, these crafts were piloted by the most skilled Xeric warriors, each trained to exploit weaknesses in enemy defenses. They didn't rely on automated systems, and they were known for their ability to overwhelm even the most advanced fleets through sheer precision and speed. Within minutes, a squadron of Vortex Fighters launched from the mothership, their sleek, black forms cutting through the void like blades. Each fighter's engine left a faint crimson trail, a signature of Xerec superiority. "Commander," the squadron leader reported, "fighters are in position, awaiting your orders. Engage the target." Xalvok ordered, his eyes gleaming with anticipation. No mercy. The fighters accelerated toward the Aegis, their weapons primed and their pilots confident. They didn't need brute force to destroy the human ship. All they needed was a single opening, a crack in its defenses. Inside the Aegis, Captain Alina Cole watched the approaching fighters on her console. She took a deep breath, her fingers hovering over the control interface. She wasn't surprised by the Xeric's move. They were predictable in their aggression. "Status," she asked calmly. A synthetic voice responded. "Incoming fighters, 27. Threat level, moderate. Defensive systems at full capacity." Alina smirked. "Let's see how they handle the Aegis. Deploy countermeasures." The Aegis began to glow faintly, its hull shimmering with an ethereal blue light. As the Vortex Fighters closed in, the ship emitted a series of pulses, invisible to the naked eye, but devastating in their precision. "Commander, something's happening," the squadron leader reported, his voice tinged with alarm. "Our targeting systems are fluctuating." The fighters' weapon locks failed one by one, their advanced systems scrambling under the Aegis interference. Pilots switched to manual control, but the ship's defenses weren't finished. Small drones detached from the Aegis, their spherical forms glinting in the starlight. Unlike traditional weapons, these drones didn't fire projectiles. Instead, they emitted concentrated electromagnetic pulses, disassembling the fighters' systems piece by piece. "Evasive maneuvers," the squadron leader shouted. The fighters weaved and dodged, their pilots pushing their crafts to their limits. But the drones were relentless, their movements precise and unpredictable. One by one, the Vortex Fighters were disabled, their engines sputtering and their weapons rendered useless. On the bridge of the mothership, Xalvok's claws dug into the armrest as he watched his elite fighters fall. His pride burned, but his anger only fueled his determination. "Commander, the fighters are being neutralized," an officer said, his voice filled with dread. Xalvok's eyes narrowed. "They won't take all of us. Prepare the mothership's primary cannon. We'll end this ourselves." The mothership's cannon began to charge, its core glowing with an intense red light. This weapon was the Xeric Empire's ultimate trump card, capable of annihilating entire fleets with a single blast. On the Aegis, Alina noticed the energy buildup and frowned. She tapped her console, bringing up a holographic display of the mothership. "Analyze their weapon," she said. "Energy signature indicates a high-yield plasma cannon," the synthetic voice replied. "Impact probability, 98%. Countermeasure recommendation, gravitational distortion." Alina nodded. "Do it." The Aegis emitted a low hum, and the space around it seemed to ripple. The ripples expanded outward, distorting the path of light and energy itself. The mothership fired. A massive beam of crimson plasma shot toward the Aegis, tearing through the void with blinding speed. But as it neared the human ship, the gravitational distortion bent the beam, curving it away from its target. The beam looped back toward the mothership, striking one of its own auxiliary ships and obliterating it in a fiery explosion. The bridge of the mothership shook violently, alarms blaring as officers scrambled to stabilize the ship. Impossible. Zalvok roared, his voice filled with rage and disbelief. How can they turn our own weapons against us? On the Aegis, Elena watched the aftermath with a calm intensity. She tapped her console, sending a final message to the Zyrek mothership. This was your warning shot. Stand down, or you won't have another chance. The Aegis began to move, its sleek form cutting through the chaos like a predator circling its prey. The Zyrek fleet, battered and humiliated, held their positions, unsure of what to do next. On the bridge of the mothership, Zalvok clenched his fists. His mind raced, calculating his next move. But for the first time, he felt the weight of uncertainty. The Aegis had proven its strength. Now, the Zyrek had to decide. Retreat or face total annihilation. The turning point. Commander Zalvok sat alone in his private chamber aboard the Zyrek flagship, his thoughts a whirlwind of anger and humiliation. The Aegis, that human ship, had not only dismantled his fleet's pride, but had also sent a message that echoed through the Zyrek hierarchy. Humanity was no longer prey. It was a predator. The dimly lit chamber flickered as a holographic communication initiated. A towering figure materialized. Zyrek Emperor Tarian, draped in ceremonial armor that glimmered with golden energy. His gaze was piercing, his presence commanding. Zalvok. The Emperor's voice rumbled, each syllable laced with barely restrained fury. Explain yourself. Zalvok bowed his head, the weight of the Emperor's anger pressing down on him. Your Majesty, the humans have developed capabilities we did not anticipate. Their ship. Do not insult me with excuses. The Emperor snapped, his tail lashing out behind him. A single human vessel has made a mockery of our greatest fleet. Do you grasp the shame this brings upon the Empire? Zalvok's claws twitched against the cold metal table before him. This ship, Aegis, is no ordinary vessel. Its technology surpasses anything we have encountered. It is more than a ship. It is a weapon of psychological and technological dominance. We must approach this with caution. Caution. Tarian's voice grew sharper. The Zyrek Empire does not fear caution. It commands victory. You will return to Earth and destroy this Aegis. I will not allow a backwater species to challenge our supremacy. Zalvok hesitated. He had faced countless enemies, crushed fleets, and conquered planets. Yet, for the first time, he felt the creeping shadow of doubt. Your Majesty, he began carefully, the humans are no longer fighting with brute strength. They fight with intelligence. They knew our weaknesses before we knew their name. If we attack again unprepared, we risk losing not just this battle, but the Empire's reputation. The Emperor's golden eyes flared. For a moment, the chamber was silent. Then Tarian leaned forward, his voice low and deadly. You speak as though you admire them. Zalvok, remember your place. The Zyrek Empire does not retreat. It annihilates. If you will not lead the next strike, I will find someone who will. Zalvok straightened, his pride stung. I will lead the assault, Your Majesty, but allow me to propose an alternative strategy. The Emperor raised an eyebrow, his expression dark but curious. Instead of rushing to destroy this Aegis, Zalvok explained, we should learn from it. Capture it. If we can reverse engineer its technology, we will not only crush the humans, but also elevate our empire to unparalleled heights. Tarian was silent for a long moment, his gaze calculating. Finally, he nodded. Very well, Zalvok. You will lead this mission. Capture the human ship. Bring it back to me intact. Fail, and your name will be erased from Zyrek history. The communication ended abruptly, leaving Zalvok alone in the dim chamber. The weight of the Emperor's command pressed heavily on him. Failure was not an option. Meanwhile, aboard the Aegis, Captain Alina Cole sat in the command chair, her expression calm, but her mind racing. Athena, the ship's AI, appeared as a shimmering holographic figure beside her. "They'll be back," Alina said, her voice steady. "Undoubtedly," Athena replied. "The Zirak do not handle defeat well. Their pride will demand retaliation." Alina sighed, running a hand through her hair. "We've bought Earth some time, but it's not enough. If they come back in force—" "They will come back in force," Athena corrected. "And when they do, it will not be with the intention to intimidate. It will be to destroy." Alina leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. "Then we need to be ready. What's the status of the Aegis contingency systems?" "Fully operational," Athena said. "I've also analyzed the Zirak fleet's response patterns. They rely heavily on centralized command structures. If we can disrupt that—" Alina nodded. "We can turn their strength into their downfall." As the Aegis floated silently in the void, Alina's resolve hardened. She knew this wasn't just about defending Earth. This was about sending a message to every species in the galaxy that had dismissed humanity as weak. "Let them come," she thought. "We'll show them what humans are capable of." On the Zirak flagship, Xalvok issued orders with precision. A new strategy was forming in his mind, one that would allow him to regain control of the situation and deliver the Aegis to the Emperor. "Prepare the capture units," he commanded. "Equip them with ion disruptors and quantum nets. This time, we don't attack the Aegis. We take it alive." As the fleet began to regroup and prepare, Xalvok stared out the viewport at the endless expanse of space. The Aegis was a challenge unlike any he had faced before, and he was determined to prove that the Zirak Empire could overcome even the most impossible of foes. The game had shifted, but Xalvok wasn't playing to win a battle anymore. He was playing to win the war. A message to remember. The Zirak fleet returned, larger and more prepared than before. Hundreds of warships converged on the sector where the Aegis had last been seen, their formations tight and their weapon systems primed. This was no longer just a battle. It was a vendetta. Commander Xalvok stood on the bridge of his flagship, his scaled hands clasped behind his back. The weight of the Emperor's command pressed down on him. The Aegis would be captured at all costs. No failure, no retreat. "Report," Xalvok ordered, his voice a low growl. "Commander, we have detected the Aegis," an officer said. "It is holding position near the edge of the asteroid field, stationary." Xalvok narrowed his eyes. "Stationary? Why would they stay?" The officer hesitated. "Perhaps they are waiting for us, Commander. Or perhaps it's a trap." Xalvok's lips curled into a sharp grin. "It doesn't matter. Trap or not, they cannot stand against our numbers. Deploy the capture units. Bring me that ship." Aboard the Aegis, Captain Alina Cole watched the Zirak fleet's approach on her holographic display. The ships moved like a tidal wave, a wall of darkness blotting out the stars. She exhaled slowly, her hand steady on the console. "They've returned," Athena said, her voice calm. "Of course they have," Alina replied. "And they brought the whole empire with them." Athena's holographic form flickered beside her. "They've deployed capture units, specialized ships equipped with ion disruptors and quantum nets. They plan to immobilize us." Alina smiled faintly. "They think they've learned from last time. But so have we." The Aegis remained still as the Zirak capture units closed in. They surrounded the human vessel in a precise formation, their weapons locking onto its engines and systems. "This is your final chance, human," Xalvok's voice echoed through the comms. "Surrender your ship, or we will take it by force." Alina leaned forward, her voice calm and resolute. "You still don't understand, do you? This isn't just a ship. It's a message, and you're about to hear it loud and clear." She pressed a single button on her console. The Aegis pulsed, its blue energy radiating outward in a massive wave. But this time, the wave didn't disable the Xyrek ships. Instead, it passed through them harmlessly. At first, "Commander, no systems are affected," an officer reported, relief in his voice. Xalvok smirked. "They've run out of tricks." But as the pulse expanded, the true nature of the Aegis's message became clear. The holographic displays on every Xyrek ship lit up, not with threats or schematics, but with images. Worlds once conquered by the Xyrek Empire. Cities burned, civilizations destroyed, innocents enslaved. The images told the story of Xyrek brutality, a history of dominance that had gone unchallenged for centuries. The final image was of Earth, a blue and green sphere, vibrant with life. Over it, a single phrase appeared. "This is what you fight to destroy. Is your empire worth the cost?" The Xyrek crews stared at the screens, a heavy silence falling over the fleet. Even Xalvok was struck by the stark contrast between the destruction they had wrought and the fragile beauty of the world they sought to conquer. "Commander," an officer said quietly, What are we fighting for?" Xalvok clenched his fists, his pride warring with the seed of doubt planted by the Aegis. He had always believed in the strength and supremacy of the Xyrek Empire, but now, for the first time, he questioned its purpose. Before he could respond, the Aegis moved. It shot forward, faster than any Xyrek ship could track, weaving effortlessly through the fleet. As it passed, it sent targeted pulses to each vessel, disabling weapons and propulsion systems with surgical precision. Elena's voice echoed through the comms, not just to Xalvok, but to every Xyrek soldier in the fleet. "This is your final warning. Leave Earth and never return. We do not seek war, but we will defend our home. The choice is yours, peace or annihilation." The Aegis halted, its sleek form glowing with unearthly light. For a moment, the galaxy seemed to hold its breath. Then, one by one, the Xyrek ships began to retreat. It wasn't a coordinated withdrawal. It was a quiet, uncertain exodus. The soldiers who had once marched fearlessly into battle now hesitated, the images of their empire's brutality fresh in their minds. On the bridge of his flagship, Xalvok stood motionless, his claws trembling at his sides. He had been given an impossible choice: defy the Emperor and retreat, or continue a battle he now knew he could not win. "Commander," an officer said softly, "your orders." Xalvok closed his eyes, the weight of his empire pressing down on him. Finally, he spoke, his voice heavy with resignation. "Retreat." The Xyrek fleet turned and disappeared into the void, leaving the Aegis alone once more. Elena watched the fleet's departure, her expression unreadable. Athena's voice broke the silence. "They're gone. For now." "For now," Elena echoed. She leaned back in her chair, exhaustion creeping into her voice. "We've shown them what we're capable of. Let's hope it's enough." The Aegis powered down its systems, the glowing blue energy fading into the blackness of space. It was a single ship, but its message had been delivered. And across the galaxy, the Xyrek Empire would never forget the day they faced humanity and lost.